It was all the young men used to have these little crystals, and they put them in something like a cookie box or a cracker box, and everybody would fiddle around with it, moving it in different places. And the next day they'd brag about, I got Pittsburgh last night, that sort of thing. And Willard, well, I told you that in the written part, but he had a group of musicians.
No, I'm not.
And they used to practice in our apartment.
Excuse me. Yeah. That sounds familiar.
And he was on the radio, and that was considered extraordinary at that time. He and his little group of musicians, and everybody in the apartment building were so happy to hear the music. A lot of them are sitting out on the steps listening to it and everything. And Willard even put out a little newspaper about that area of Chicago. It was a very small one, and he made funny stories. And he wrote a little thing about the butcher. He said, how'd it go? It was about Barney's butcher shop. He said, once I was a horsey running through the lot. Now I am a beefsteak in Barney's butcher shop.
Deathless pose.
And, he used to go in there and kid the butcher all the time. And the butcher found out about that verse. He was a little annoyed.
That's funny. That's great.
But it was funny.
They know about him inspiring Harold Teen's hairdo?
Oh, I don't know if they do or not. But he was great friends with this cartoonist of the Chicago Tribune. And it was about a young teenager kid, And so this artist would draw a lot of stuff from what Willard told him. Of course, Willard would make up all kinds of things. But he appeared once at the guy's office, and he had this real high, I don't know what you call
White
it.
walls.
Yeah.
Sideburns?
And
No sideburns.
short hair all the way around, and shaved sort of hair, And so the fella drew the fella in the comic strip with that. Harold Teen had that, and he mentioned Will, and Will felt pretty good about that.
Harold T?
Harold
Harold Teen.
Teen.
He's
Ah,
famous. You can look him up.
probably Google him. Harold Teen.
Right. So that. But anyhow, going back to the crystal sets, that was so exciting, and you used earphones. And so this Christmas Eve, Dad had bought a real set. It wasn't a homemade thing. And I said to Mother, when isn't that a gift from Santa Claus? And she said she didn't know. She wasn't there when it came. I should ask Dad. And I remember I was looking for my galoshes in the closet, and a whole bunch of chocolates came down. And I said, what's that? She said, Santa Claus must have hidden them up there. And I thought, great. And I gathered them off as fast as I could. But anyhow, Dad said this radio, we figured Dad got it for himself, But he said it was a Christmas gift for the whole family. And we had 2 sets of earphones. And we would share it. We would have one, and somebody else would have the other one. And so 4 could listen at a time. And I heard Santa Claus. And you could hear the reindeer bells. And he said he wanted everybody to go to bed because he wouldn't stop unless they were in bed. So I got up immediately, put that down, and went to bed.
Power of Santa.
Yeah. And then I guess it must have been about an hour later, I heard my father close the door, the front door, and he said, we lived in a 5-room apartment. And he said, thank you, Santa Claus, good night. And I hurried out. And and Santa Claus was gone. And I looked out the window and no Santa Claus. And he said he couldn't stop. He was too busy. He had a lot of places to go, and I believed him. And so he said, but look what Santa Claus left you. And it was a dollhouse. And I never thought I'd ever have a dollhouse. But Dad had made it. And Willard had helped him. And they painted it. And Willard made little watercolors for each of the rooms, you know. They were, you know, little sailing ships and all that. They were just lovely. Everybody in the family had contributed.
It's amazing how there's no artistic talent in the family. I don't know where it comes from.
Or humor.
Yeah, humor too.
We all believe in Santa.
Yeah, that helped. Yeah. So I just thought that was the most wonderful Christmas I ever had. It was lovely, and they had a little box of little tiny forks and knives and spoons on the kitchen table. I could close my eyes and see that. And there were little curtains on the windows, and the beds had little pillows and blankets, and Mother had made all those for me. Of course, I thought Santa Claus did all of that. And
Where did they make it?
what do you mean?
Where did they?
Down the basement, and I heard Dad. I could hear hammering, and I asked Mother what was going on, and she said, "Oh, he's fixing something, you know." And but you're not supposed to go down there. And Willard and Wally would go down and so on. So it was a lovely Christmas.
How old was Willard at that time about?
Well, I was 5, so he was 8.5 years older than I. Yeah, we just had a 5-room apartment. Mother and Dad slept in the living room, and but I thought that was the most marvelous place, and Dad had put up the Christmas tree, and we were all just sitting there. I still remember it so well. I mean, the lights and everything, and I thought how wonderful, how lucky I was to be there. And then I found they gave me new skates, ice skates. They were what Willard and Wally called sled skates. The runners, 2 runners. But I loved it, and I went on. And the next Christmas I got real skates. But it was a lovely Christmas.
Tell us the story about when you were born.
Oh, well, we didn't have a telephone or anything. I lived on, Victoria Street in Chicago. That was where I was born. And Mother said that since we had no phone, Dad had to go for the doctor. So he went out to see if he could find a phone. And Mother told Willard and Wally and Gwen, you must stay in the living room and you mustn't come in no matter what you hear. And so she closed the door, and she told me how they put newspapers on the bed and then the sheets and all that. So I was born while my father was gone. And
Your mother was all by herself.
yes.
He went to get the doctor, but he didn't get back in time.
No, I was born before he got
And she had no help.
no.
So it was Glenn and your mom? No, what am I saying?
This is when Eleanor was born.
When you
This
were
is
born,
1960.
So how old was
and she was completely by herself?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
How old was Gwen?
When was I have to stop and
So
think.
Willard was 8.
They said they were close, so 7.5. She was there.
When
7.
she must have been about 7 years old. And of course, the next day Dad came out to tell the kids, guess who came last night? And Wally says, Santa Claus. He told me later he was very disappointed.
I'm not surprised.
We just got another baby? Come on.
Yeah, what's good about that? But in we used to have one of these stove heated apartments. That was when I was born. And it was black stove, and I guess it had glass sections, and the light would flicker. And Mother had laid me on a couch and told Wally to watch me and see that I didn't roll off the couch. But Wally was watching those shadows, and he got scared. So he left the room, and I promptly rolled off the couch. And so Mother scolded Wally, and he felt bad because...
It's different from night and day. And this weather out here is very much like normal.
But my father, he worked awfully hard.
And while he was working at the post office with this hernia and taking care of his family, he was selling insurance at nighttime. And eventually he built up enough insurance business that he could let go of the post office and go full-time with the insurance business.
Is that Washington National?
It started out, it was called something like 20th Century or something like that. I don't remember the exact name. And then it was taken over by the Washington National. But Dad loved it. He loved selling insurance. Anything had to do with math.
He's been that way since I was that big.
That's how Uncle Willard was.
Really?
Oddly enough.
Washington National, is that anything related to Washington Mutual?
No, they got bought up and absorbed and disappeared. But when he retired, I have this article about him retiring when he was 75.
And he didn't want to.
And I have a resolution from the board of directors thanking him for his years of service and so forth. And I remember my dad saying that they had asked him to, even though he was going to retire soon, to be the executive vice president or some high-level position, and he said no, let the younger guy take it on. Now you recently, some time ago, told me that when he came in those later years, when he was in his 70s, that he would take a little snooze on his couch.
Right, yes, every day.
Every
and
day.
He also, every day, he had an American cheese sandwich. That was inevitable, that and coffee.
It seemed to me, based on what I remember, that his adjustment from work to retirement was difficult, that he really didn't know what to do with himself once he retired. He had no hobbies, he had energy and health and so forth, but he really didn't have something, a passion about
He
it.
needed a challenge.
It seemed like he went way too early for all the things he had going for him, except he did, like you said, he didn't have that opportunity or that passion to do something every day.
Well, what he was interested was in the car, driving the car, and when television came, he loved television. He loved to watch wrestling, and I thought that was all. But and then he and Mother decided to travel. But then Mother wasn't very well either. She was having gallbladder trouble. So it was too bad that they'd waited. Oh, bye.
I'm retired.
You're retired. Good.
It was very nice meeting you.
Oh, you're leaving?
We're leaving.
Oh, well, lovely to see you.
Thank you for your gift of educating us on so many things, so many of the missing pieces.
Yeah, well, I just think it's wonderful of you to see us.
Would anyone like
see
coffee?
me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I hope I'll see you again. We live in Shoreline, so it isn't very far from here.
Right. Then they decide they'll have some.
Would you like a cookie? No, tea
Drinkers. Well, I can make tea too.
Did you guys like
I know.
Tea?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, Mom's a tea.
Well, I hope so.
Okay, very good. Will Earl Grey work?
They pass it down. Honor will drink Earl Grey, but the rest of them think it's like drinking perfume. You have just regular black tea.
I have some English breakfast.
That's exactly
Does that work better? English breakfast it is then. Okay. So that's okay with everyone?
Yes.
English breakfast is? Okay, then I'll make a pot.
do you remember when you came to my house?
I sure do.
Do you?
I didn't know until later, though, that it was an interview.
Right. Oh, I felt funny about it, but Lucille had asked me to do it.
See, I did not know that until
You were
probably
supposed
just recently.
to check her out or
Yes.
something? Oh,
I was being
you must
tested.
have passed.
I guess I did, or else Mark didn't listen to the advice. I don't know which. One or the other, huh?
Well, Lucille
When Mark and I were
called
dating.
me and said,
Said there's Mary
son was seeing you.
Oh, that
and
story, yeah.
She said, I can't
And I
get
went,
her
I want you
there,
to
and I
check it
need to
out.
know what she's like. And she said, so could you invite her to lunch and look her over? And I said, well, I feel funny
She's a
about it, but I'll do it. And so you came, and you were dressed somewhat like
I
that.
probably was. I've been wearing jeans and shirts for a long time.
Right. And I know your husband was not pleased with this idea at all.
He didn't seem too displeased to me. I don't remember him grumbling about it at all.
I don't think he wanted to do it, but Lucille demanded it, and so I gave you a
Queen Lucille.
100%.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you. Because look what all I got in the deal here.
20 years later.
Can you get your money back? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think I even would ask. There's no
really
refund
nice.
on the Loarie family.
It's nice to meet them all, isn't it?
It is great. This is great
Did
fun.
you use up all your stories? Are there any
I
left?
hope not.
Oh, we got lots of
She probably
questions.
has some more. If I get her some tea, I bet she'll have a second wind or a third wind or something.
Just give her the cup with the hot water in it and the bag, because all she does is threaten.
One of those, just, oh, I see how it is. I get it. The others?
Brown eyes?
Okay, very
And
good.
they've
Thank
gotten
you.
to be more hazel over the time, huh? Like
faded.
mine. But Dad had these blue eyes, and no one in our family had blue eyes. Everyone
Well,
had brown eyes.
Grandpa had one blue and one brown. Didn't
Is
he?
that right? So it got it from Grandpa. That's the one thing I'll never forget about Dad. He had these, if he had this look, if he was whatever, those blue eyes that pierced right through you. It's like a laser. Like, yeah, I'll get the gas. Not a problem. I'll mow the lawn. Not a problem.
Whenever he got
John looks
together
like
with
Grandpa.
Block,
Herb Block.
it was a riot.
You look like Grandpa.
Tom, his father, was probably the last member of the family to visit before he passed away.
Well, he lost most
And,
of his hair, didn't he?
When Mom passed away, I called him
Grandpa
up
didn't have that much hair left.
to let him know.
He had
Just
more than I
within
do.
an hour or
No, I
so
don't think
from the
so.
hospital.
Not by much. Not that I measured
And
it. You know, but
he had a sort of a self-protection mechanism.
Her Block.
Yeah, I don't think he ever wanted to answer the phone.
I think so.
Because every time I ever called him, there were maybe
That's
two
true, but
times,
that's
he would
pretty
go,
thin to me.
both times said, he'd answer the phone, hello, and he'd say, this is Mr. Rogers.
Dad?
No, this is Herb Block.
Oh, Herb.
In his older age, he would pretend he was
met
Mr.
him
Rogers on the phone, and I said, okay, well, I'm trying to find Herb Block. I'm Bill Laurie's son, and then you go, oh, how you doing? And his Herb was there, but it was sort of funny. He kind of
I sort of thought Herb Block was pretty good, when I was about 14. And he'd come over and Willard teased him. He said, told Herb, he said, when I told Elenor you were coming, she just danced around the house. And I said, Willard.
Well,
Yeah, why don't you embarrass me a little bit?
Oh, yes, he
Did Herb marry?
No, he never married,
No,
that's
I didn't
right.
think
He
so.
was engaged and the girl dropped him.
She took us to meet him when we were visiting
Yeah,
in Washington,
we went
D.C.
to the
So
Washington
we got to go to
Post.
the Washington
good.
Post.
And he,
Oh, wow.
and he also gave me a signed cartoon and also a book of his. And on the cartoon, it's the one of when Pope John died, well, and it showed the earth in mourning.
Yeah,
in
it said
black.
a death in the family.
Yes, very nice.
This was John the 23rd, right?
Yeah.
Well, I remember one thing about Herb Block, and that was that he always sent roses to his mother on his birthday.
Now that's
remember-
a good thing to do.
I remember one time that we went to go visit my grandmother Finnegan, and for some reason we were going to see Herb Block's mother also. They lived nearby or something,
Of course.
and we went, and my mother went by to say hello or something, and it happened to be close to the birth date. And I heard this story about how he always sent his mother roses on his birthday. And in the later years, when my mother was going through so much,
Our dad, all these Loarie and all these things that happened.
With Willard.
I did that for her.
Oh, that was nice.
I find it the most interesting.
I'm sure she
loved you for it.
appreciated it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a rough time for her.
You'd think with all this time that went by that the emotions would
I think as we get older, we cry a lot easier.
Yeah, well, I think we have sense enough to recognize.
Well,
It's a good
tears aren't a
thing.
bad thing.
It's a good thing. It means you got a heart.
But you want to talk in a manner that, you know, get it out.
Nice to see that you
Take a
moved
minute.
and touched.
Okay, Phil, it's your turn. I haven't seen you cry yet.
Just see me last night. I was trying to give a little toast to him, and I saw him at the Notre Dame game last week down at the Rose Bowl. I haven't seen him for a while. And I just gave him a big hug, and I was all choked up, and you know, yeah.
So let's see your Willard impression. Since everyone says you look like Willard,
He does. He really does.
Oh, I know what I want to ask you. I remember
So they came down, and we
Granddad,
Oh, yes, thank you.
and your dad. And I remember a couple things he used to say. And one of them was, when we were little kids, he'd say, two is 4, how much is twice?
Right, yes.
And you would go,
Yeah,
two is
Dad always
4
did that.
twice, and then, it would just throw you. He wouldn't know how to use it 4 times 2, or
Yeah,
does it
I did
mean
that, right.
twice is 2, and there was no real answer, I believe. It was just to keep you on your
All
toes.
right. Yeah.
He was great at that. And there was a couple other ones. Potato, he'd say,
He almost always called all the boys Mike.
Mike, that's right, he did. Hey Mike, what's going on?
Maggie.
Yeah. Oh, Mike.
And what's the other one? He'd say
And girls were Maggie.
Maggie. Mike and Maggie. And there was that thing about